Welcome to Healer Within podcast series. There are many pathways to healing that fall outside the realm of Western medicine and traditional approaches. The purpose of this podcast series is to educate and inspire the community to explore the multitude of lesser utilized pathways to healing the mind, body, and soul. Hypnosis, yoga, meditation, energy healing, sound healing, and yes, even art, music, and dance. For these self-empowering, soul-driven, and vibration-raising modalities exponentially promote and unleash the healer within. Through this series, I hope you will begin to reclaim your power and discover your own unique formula for healing by engaging and aligning the soul, the mind, and the body with the frequency of the higher self. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your healing journey. Welcome back to Healer Within. This is Amy Marone, your podcast host and hypnotist. If you're listening to this right now, chances are you're someone who knows how to make things happen. You're an entrepreneur, a C-suite executive, a creative visionary, or a leader. You are used to holding it all together. But let me ask you a question that we rarely discuss. What do you do when your own life completely unravels? What happens when everything flips totally upside down, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew about your identity, your career, and your purpose? Today, we're talking about corporate burnout, not as a professional failure, but as a beautiful catalyst for a divine spiritual awakening. Earlier this year, I sat down with Lindsay on Live Like Eaton podcast for an incredibly candid conversation about my own journey. We pulled back the curtain on the invisible battle with a debilitating, mysterious illness. We also explored the moment my soul left my body and the direct, undeniable way spirit steered me toward my true calling. If you're currently sitting in the ashes of your own burnout, wondering who you are without this six-figure title or thriving business, this episode is a testament to what happens when you finally stop bargaining with the universe, and what happens when you drop the exhausting struggle for control and surrender to the deeper wisdom of your soul. Let's step across the threshold. Before we dive into the depths of my story, I want to establish something incredibly important. While my personal path involved a dramatic, sudden exit from my physical body, you don't need to look at death straight in the eye to experience a profound spiritual awakening. The Western world has us conditioned to believe that an awakening is something reserved for mountaintops and monks. But I'm here to tell you that the most profound, urgent awakenings on the planet right now are happening in boardrooms, home offices, and behind closed doors as we toggle between work and life. And an awakening rarely waits for a convenient time. It chooses a very unique entry point for every single soul. For some, it's a sudden shattering. For others, it's a slow, quiet ache that refuses to be ignored. As spiritual business leaders, you might be experiencing your own threshold moment right now through one of our four modern entry points. First, there's a silent exhaustion of success. This is when you reach the absolute pinnacle of your career. You look around at your six-figure reality, your executive title, or your scaling company, and you realize your soul is entirely starved. You achieved everything society told you would bring you fulfillment, yet you feel a profound, haunting emptiness. Second, There's the sudden disruption, a divorce, a sudden career shift, the loss of a loved one, or a sudden health crisis that instantly cracks open that neat, predictable facade of your daily routine. The ground beneath you vanishes, forcing you to look at who you are when your external identity is entirely stripped away. Third, the creative discord. This is that deep, painful misalignment that comes from operating in a hyperlogical, traditional corporate mainstream world, a world that often pathologizes your sensitive, empathetic, or heart-driven nature. You are simply tired of pretending to be colder, sharper, and more detached than you actually are. And finally, there's the quiet whisper, a persistent, recurring inner knowing, often felt as a physical sensation in your chest or your gut, telling you that the life you're living is simply too small for the truth of who you are. Every single one of these experiences is a sacred doorway. They all lead to the exact same question that Spirit asked me on the other side. Are you ready to live more intentionally? So many clients who find their way to my chair are high achieving professionals who are quite literally drowning in relentless work stress. But when we look beneath the surface, it's rarely just about a heavy workload or a looming deadline. More often than not, it's a profound case of mismatched frequencies. When you plug your energy into a corporate culture or a leadership style that values bottom lines over human souls, it creates a deep, agonizing cognitive dissonance. You are forced to compartmentalize your integrity. You silence your intuition. You wear a mask just to survive the quarterly review or next staff meeting. You find yourself participating in systems, conversations, and strategies that actively clash with your internal moral compass. But here's the truth: your energy can't be fooled. This psychological and spiritual friction doesn't just stay in your mind, it drops straight down into the physical body, wreaking absolute havoc. It begins quietly, a lingering tension in the shoulders, a sudden inability to sleep despite deep exhaustion, or a digestive system that refuses to settle down. But if this is left unchecked, it manifests as inexplicable chronic fatigue, a completely dysregulated nervous system, or an autoimmune disease that even Western medicine struggles to name or treat. Your body is simply broadcasting what your soul already knows. You're living and working in an environment that is toxic to your energetic design. For the empaths, the leaders, the creatives, and the natural born light workers listening, your sensitivity is not a pathology. It is your compass. Your physical symptoms are not a sign of weakness or an inability to handle the pressure. They are an emergency broadcast system telling you that it is time to realign, pull back your power, and stop trading your vitality for corporate validation. Before I was guiding leaders through these soul level transformations, I spent 30 years in the helping healing professions. But behind closed doors, I was fighting a quiet, agonizing battle with my own body. Following a major surgery in my 40s, my health began to spiral into what I can only describe as a perfect storm. Under the intense demands of working in a leadership role, moving through a divorce, being a single mom, and a caregiver to an elderly live-in parent, my body entered a severe, relentless autoimmune crisis. For 5 grueling years, I chased answers. I flew from Seattle to Michigan 10 months in a row to work with a brilliant specialist who finally placed a name on my rare condition. In layman's terms, my cells simply couldn't produce enough energy to sustain basic human function. The symptoms were profound and terrifying. I experienced severe chronic pain, a deep burning pain that moved unpredictably through my joints and muscles. I suffered from post-exertional malaise. The simplest activities of daily living, like taking a shower or walking across the street to get my mail, left me completely exhausted and sometimes bedridden for days. My autonomic nervous system was completely short-circuiting. My heart rate would spike into dangerous tachycardia just from sitting up or standing too long, or bottom out until my blood pressure completely crashed, landing me in the ER more times than I care to recall. Eventually, Western medicine ran completely out of options. The only remaining treatment was an aggressive intravenous medication that carried a very real risk of permanently destroying my vision. Lacking the energy to stay awake for more than 2 hours a day, having stepped away from a lucrative 6-figure corporate career I could no longer physically maintain, and facing absolute financial and personal chaos, I had reached my breaking point. I remember throwing my arms up in the air and having a desperate bargain with God. I said, "Take me or heal me, but do not leave me this way." Within days, Spirit answered. Unlike typical near-death experiences that occur under bright hospital lights or at the scene of an accident, my crossing happened quietly, completely alone, in my very own bed while my family was upstairs fast asleep. My soul left my physical body with breathtaking, catapulting speed. I entered a state of absolute weightlessness and freedom. For me, the other side wasn't a visual tour. Instead, it was a profound experience of pure mental telepathy, a distinctive, deeply grounded voice, one I recognized instantly as a divine presence that had comforted me during my childhood, downloaded a thought directly into my mind. "Amy, are you ready to leave the earth plane?" Before I could formulate a response, an instantaneous, overwhelming download flooded my being. I experienced the cumulative, crushing emotional impact my early departure would have on my 9-year-old son. As a single mother, the grief it would carry was palpable. In that microsecond, I recognized the unbreakable, sacred soul contract that we shared. Spirit gave me a choice, accompanied by a directive that would alter the trajectory of my entire existence. If we send you back, you will live more intentionally. With that, I chose to return. Returning was like being drop-kicked back into my physical form. My spiritual body reemerged into my physical body, almost like a sponge rapidly absorbing water. I sat up, turned on my bedroom light, and gasped for air. The financial chaos was still there, the illness still there, but everything around me had changed. I realized with absolute certainty that I was being guided. I was protected, and I was no longer navigating this life alone. Shortly after my return, as I was trying to figure out how I was going to survive on just 2 hours of energy a day, the voice spoke to me again with striking clarity. "You're going back to school to be a hypnotist." This completely defied human logic. I had never seen a hypnotist in my life. I had never researched the field, ever. My body was still severely limited, and the training program required me to sit in a classroom 10 hours a day, multiple weekends in a row, while juggling several part-time contracts that barely put food on the table. But when spirit speaks with that level of authority, you simply don't question it. I completed my training and opened my business in February 2016. When I first started, like most hypnotists, my work was entirely script-based, but it took less than 6 months for me to realize that Spirit had a much grander launch pad in mind. Clients began sitting in my chair, and without my conscious intervention, profound trans-healing energies began moving directly through my body. The sessions became beautifully cathartic and intensely transformative. I realized I was operating as a trans medium, allowing high frequency spiritual guidance to stream through me to perform deep soul level unwindings for the person before me. Spirit would even begin showing up in my space hours before a client arrived, downloading the exact energetic root of their blockages so we could target it from the moment they sat down. Through this work, Spirit revealed a clear 5-stage blueprint of realignment that every corporate leader undergoes when crossing this threshold. First, the awakening call in physical crisis. The external life you've built cracks open through burnout or illness. Second, crossing the threshold, otherwise referred to as soul detachment. This is the moment you emotionally and energetically detach from old corporate expectations or identities that no longer serve you. And third, the telepathic download and soul contract recognition, dropping beneath the mental chatter to access pure, unshakable inner truth and remembering who you are as a soul. And fourth, the intentional choice to return to form. This is the pivotal moment of surrender where you decide to stay in the game, but on entirely new terms, bringing spiritual awareness back into physical reality. And fifth, grounded realignment and sovereign mission, the ultimate destination where you step into your power, build a life aligned with your true frequency, and begin living and leading completely by design. When the veil drops and you begin to see your life more clearly, the initial feeling isn't always mountaintop bliss. Often, it feels like chaos. Your old ways of operating stop working, and your ego desperately tries to pull you back into the safety of your old patterns. Trying to navigate this shift entirely alone can be so incredibly isolating. What I can say about that is it's nearly impossible to read the label when you're sitting inside the bottle. But hear me when I say this. You don't have to navigate the threshold alone. When we learn to trust the quiet, authoritative voice within and treat our sensitivity as the sovereign compass it is, we stop merely surviving the corporate grind. We begin to live and lead by design. If you want to hear my full, unfiltered conversation with Lindsay about bridging the gap between profound spiritual wisdom and everyday physical reality, I highly encourage you to catch my full guest episode on Live Like Eden podcast. I'll place the link in the show notes. And if you're a leader, entrepreneur, or creative who is currently sitting at this exact threshold, ready to shift, pivot, or completely realign your career and your life, I invite you to connect with me. You can explore my private sessions at Critical Mindset Group or begin diving into the channeled teachings in my book, Whispers Beyond the Veil. All the links are in the show notes below. Thank you so much for tuning in to Healer Within. Remember, your sensitivity is not a liability. It is your superpower. Until next time, stay grounded, trust your compass, and lead from the soul.